Hello everyone. Welcome to the Streetcar and welcome to the Legend Media channel. We are directing live in the Streetcar. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dante. Again, this is my new platform. Talking about all world news in the diaspora around the world. Today, I'd like to discuss about a few things. The first topic is the conflict between Mali, which is a West African country, and Mauritania. So Mali and Mauritania has a borderline. So pretty much Mali and Mauritania will be like America and Canada. So there's a borderline. This is pretty much two Western African countries. They both have the wealth and their resources. But however, for some reason, there's some conflict that the Malian people that live in Mauritania, they are struggling big time. In other words, the Malian people that live in Mauritania, they don't even have the basic right in order to have the free will to run whether their businesses, whether to have a good job, or whether even to have a family to reside, very simply. But here's when it becomes a little tricky. So when you look at Mali and Mauritania, we're gonna talk about really pound for pound, right? In terms of the sizes and how come one country are so small and another one country also barely have a population density, in other words, the sizes, but yet a country that has everything, but its people are running to the country that barely have enough population, and they are the ones struggling. So in other words, it will speak volume as I give you more information, which is a very concerning. But before even I go to the detail, ladies and gentlemen, you talk about two Western African countries, right? So granted, you're gonna be thinking when we go back to our story, right? From our ancestor. And when you also look into the way the geopolitical working right now, where, you know, everybody's against Africa, and that's not begin today, right? That begins since the beginning of a human civilization. So I'm talking about from slavery from slavery to colonization, from colonization to the war that's gone around, which we all know is based on the economy, right? Because Africa have all the resources. Africa have the youngest population, and Africa have the potential to become the largest continent in terms of sizes. So we all know what Africa possesses and also what Africa can become. So on that note, right, let's kind of dwell on that for a minute. So one must ask himself, so if that's the case, right, this continent should become together as ones, right, so that way they can prosper. But here, that's not happening. But yeah, so let's just say that's continent, right? Because continent, you talk about 54 countries when it comes to African continent. So a lot of country. So then one must ask himself, so what about the Western or the South Africans or the Eastern African or the Northern African? So if we divide it by 4, at least North, East, and West, and East, and West, all of those 4, if you divide it, they should at least come together in order to become at least as a power. So that's how intellectually smart person will kind of ask himself, like that should be the reaction of anybody that's trying to find solution. But yeah, that also not the case. So African problem is African themselves. So in other words, it's like a self-hate. So let's just say, okay, West is also a bride, right? Because when you talk about West Africa, you talk about Senegal, you talk about Guinea, you talk about Burkina Faso, you talk about Niger, you talk about Nigeria, you talk about Ivory Coast, you talk about Ghana. So you can say, okay, that's also too vast, right? So then one person might ask himself, okay, if that's too vast, let's kind of minimize it, right? Let's chop this thing down. Let's kind of approach this thing like an elephant meat, right? So let's just have a small bite. So granted, somebody that's trying to find solution for African botanist. So you can say, okay, the country that's least a borderline should come as one, right? So that way you're gonna get what I have, I will get what you have, So that way, since we know the war is fighting us from the beginning of a civilization, I'm talking about since the beginning, I'm talking about 300,000 years ago when Boacardier find America. So because, listen, West get together to get Africa so that African can be maintained and where they are. So then Africa should come together so that way they can prosper. And if African cannot come together because that's 54 country, at least that's the country that's one right next to each other will at least say, okay, intelligently, let's come together so we can prosper. So that's what I'm trying to clarify to you guys. So that's how sad it is when you look at what's happening between Mali and Mauritania. So Mali and Mauritania technically is the same country. But here, yeah, they're about to eat each other meat. So Africa have a self-hate problem, which I hate to say. So here's what's going on in Mali and between Mali and Mauritania. Malian that's living in Mauritania as an immigration, they barely can have identification card in order to do anything for themselves. They barely can reside there as they want to. They barely can really prosper as they want to. For some reason, the two countries, and in terms of a political, they have a political conflict. So here, so who's paying for it? It's the population that's paying for it. So that's the first point. The second point, so you're gonna say, okay, if that's the case, if Malian people that live in Mauritania, they barely can live by, so why they don't go back to Mali in order to prosper at least? Because here you in Mauritania, that's like if somebody live in Canada and they come to America, they can barely get a job, they can barely have an apartment or house. So granted, there's no reason for you to be in America because all you gotta do is go to Canada, which is really across the street from America. So here, that's not happening. Why? Why even Malian people struggling so much in Mauritania? Why they don't leave Mauritania and go back to Mali so they can become who they are? So that's the problem. Because in Mali, even though Mali have all the resources, even though Mali is so stupid rich, but yeah, Malian population barely can can enjoy that well. Let me tell you a little bit about how wealthy Mali is, so that way you guys can get a grasp to my point here. Massa Musa, right? You ever heard of a Massa Musa? Massa Musa is the richest man ever live alive. Massa Musa is the richest man in the world if he was alive today. You know, Elon Musk, we find out yesterday that Elon Musk is worth over $400 billion. Well, Massa Musa was worth $400 billion. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds years ago. He's the one that take the entire country to Arabic Peninsula with the tons of gold and go make Arabic people wealthy. So his wealth is really beyond human capacity or comprehension. Guess what? Massa Musa come from Mali. So Massa Musa that had all of this gold, that's in that land. So Mali remain the same country. So which mean the gold still remain in Mali, right? As a resource, right? So you don't have to be the smartest person to understand that. So if Massa Musa can become richer than anybody in the world, I'm talking about years and years ago. So why Mali is struggling today? So it don't make sense, right? So it's telling you the level of a corruption, the level of a self-hate, the level of lack of inspiration, the level of, in other words, the level of a selfishness. So same country, same land, same resource, even greater, if I can say that. Because now remember, we have a technology in order to be able to know exactly where the resource are. We have a technology to be able to really dig in those resources out. We have a more mass population now, because in time of Massa Musa, we didn't have a technology, but yeah, he had a more gold than anybody existing in this planet. So in time of Massa Musa, the Mali population was not that dense, right? It was not. We didn't have that many people there. Today, there's about 24 million Mali. That's not counting people that's living in diaspora. In other words, outside of Mali. So it's a simple mathematics. So Mali should be rich than ever in any measurement if you really want to get down and to your point. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not the case. And that's sad. How can you help a country that refuses categorically to help himself? So how come one can hate himself to this level? And that's sad. So that is the level of the issue. So what happened now? Since Mali really not prospering for themselves, they're not prospering for themselves. So they have to, people that's in Mali, they have to decide to migrate themselves to Mauritania in order to make a means by. But let's talk about Mauritania. So you understand the level of a lack of a leadership. So what is Mauritania? Let me tell you a little bit about Mauritania so you understand, you know, how concerning this issue is. So let's talk about Mauritania. Mauritania is a country located in West Africa. It is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the west, Western Sahara, to the north, Algeria, to the northeast, Mali, to the east and southeast, and Senegal, to the southwest. The capital city is the North Shore. Mauritania has a rich culture, heritage influenced by Arab, Berber, and African tradition. So Mauritanian consists of three different ethnic. You're right, Arabic, Berber is kind of like a Arabic mix, and then African. And those African, what I mean, that's a black skinned people. And those black skinned people actually from Mali. so that's how deep is it. But here how it's getting interesting. So the economy is primarily based on agriculture, livestock, mining, particularly iron ore, or if you know. So Mauritania barely have enough resources because they live off of livestock, mining, and agriculture. But here's the population size of Mauritania. Mauritania only have a 4.5 million population. 4.5 million population. So small country, barely have people there, but yet country that's the size of a 1.2 million, which is Mali, about 24 million population, they are migrating to a country that barely have resources with a small population. And that's sad. And yet, the people of Mali have to leave Mali with the gold, with the oil, with the density of the agricultural potential, all of these resources. Malian people can barely enjoy anything to the well. So why I'm talking about this today, we receive a video from Malian that reside in Mauritania screaming loud to the government of Mali to help them for God's sake, because they cannot barely move around in Mauritania. So this show you the lack of a leadership, the lack of a courage, the lack of the level of a self-hate. And this can go on and on and on. You can take every 54 country in Africa. If there's a country that don't have the same problem, it's not more than 5. So the rest of the 49 countries in Africa all live with the same situation. So my point is here, what can we do for the people in Mali that live in Mauritania, so that way they can have the issue fixed, number one. And number two, why Mali government don't have some type of spine, right, for them people, for God's sake, to help his own people, like every country does. Because sovereign nation have to care about its own population first. Sovereign nation have to love the country. A sovereign nation have to do whatever they have to do to make sure the country prosper. And this is the problem in Africa. So yeah, we have a pressure from other countries. I get that. But for me, I feel like success began with himself. Because if I point my finger on you, there's a fourth finger that point back at me. So if I can utilize, if I can begin do myself well, taking care of myself well, and I believe other people can really start to give you the respect that you deserve. So in another word, Mali really have to really start to look at themselves in the mirror, the Mali leadership, and taking care of the population. So I go a little farther. When you put every country in Africa together, Mali used to be in a second position when it comes to gold. Today, Mali is in third position when it comes to gold. Why? Why one can be from second position to third position? That's the first question. And second position, even if in a third position, that's still good, right? Because gold have the highest commodity than anything in the world right now, correct? And you only talk about 24 million population, correct? So how come you can be number third in the world and your people barely have a food to eat? How come you can be number third in the world and your people barely can have a job? How come you can be number third in the world and your people barely can have an education? How come you can be number third in the world and here your people have to leave this vast land and go to this small country and begging to have even ID? They cannot even provide ID card to the people. How the country can respect you when you cannot even provide a simple ID card to your population? So I'm gonna play the video so you can listen to Malian people that's living in Mauritania. The guy will speak in Mandingo, but I will translate it for you to understand. Let's listen to him.
Assalamu alaikum. Aouni Aoubalmakedo, Isiaka Traoré, le président de la communauté malienne en Mauritanie. Ambe Mauritanie Bi. Aujourd'hui, c'est le 18 décembre 2024. On sigura Belendo, Mauritanie ma. Ne Mauritanie Malien, Beladjelinga Diamoy. Ambioro Limena Kompi. Nabi messager a adressé à son excellence le président de la transition, Assimi Goïta.
He's talking to his country president.
Le président,
he said, Mr. President, today I'm speaking to you today because we're struggling in Mauritania. Please listen to us so that way you can come up with a solution. We are struggling. We are struggling, very struggling. So it's pretty much African people have this tendency to keep repeating same thing and over. So he's pretty much talking about, the relationship between Mali and Mauritania. So I'm gonna go further so you can listen to really the things that he's requesting, which is so sad. Let's listen to him. We're not respecting in Mauritania. We are crying to you. If somebody tell you Malian people don't good in Mauritania, they are lying to you. So we're struggling. So we Malian people that live in Mauritania, so obviously we're not part of Mali. If we are, why are we struggling so much? So in another word, he's telling his president that really nobody cared about them. And remember, Mali and Mauritania are borderline. So there's nothing between these two countries and besides a little barrier. That's it. So, and granted, Mali have an embassy in Mauritania. So you're gonna ask yourself, so what the embassy people do for Malian immigrants that live in Mauritania? So obviously nothing. This gentleman, he's a community leader. So all he can do is crying loud. The struggle is people going through. So really guys, this telling you the level of self-hate that's happening in Africa between African countries. So now, what Malian leadership gonna do for his people? And granted, Mali just have a guy that just did a coup. And when he done a coup, most people in Mali really thought that he's gonna bring the change. But obviously, he's leading the country the same way people really have fight for in order to have a liberty and prosperity for the country. But for some reason, it's getting worse and worse and worse every day for Malian people. So this is just, so I'm gonna ask for people that can really talk about this loud and clear, so that way a Malian immigrant that's living in Mauritania can really get the help they deserve. And at the same time, I'm gonna try to use my voice and tell Mauritanian leadership to really stop what they're doing. Africa should be a one nation, one continent, so that way we can be strong. This self-hate and really mistreating each other country population is really not going to get us anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I wanted to really talk about today, and really be able to bring this to your attention. So when you look at it, a small country, a large country, a wealthiest country, and now wealthiest country, but yet the wealthiest country, the largest country, people are fleeing from their land to another land that barely have a resource, that barely have a mass density. Why? The answer is a lack of a leadership. Malian people don't have a leadership. So I'm praying God, so God can provide Mali a leadership that Mali deserves, because Malian population deserve way better than this. This is not right, and this is not the best way to live. Mali got gold, Mali have a lithium, Mali have a oil, Mali have a very vast land to do agriculture. All the resources the world cannot function without it. Mali land possess that. So why they struggling? That is the question we all must ask ourselves. My name is Dante. Welcome to Streetcar and Legend Major. If you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. And we're gonna talk about the world news. We're gonna talk about everything, every aspect of life we're gonna talk about. This is the new channel that I just launched. So if this is your first time or you're gonna listen to my show, please make sure you subscribe, and you know, more to come. We'll make sure we wake the word out around the world, so that way we all can be on the same page, so we can build a body nation together. Until next time, ciao.